this, of course, is under the theme of Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID-19 World. So they're going to unpack that. As of now, let me ask Grace Malera, who is team leader for Tese Nkanza, who is also going to moderate the panel discussion, to take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth, for the introduction. Good afternoon, our live audience here at BICC, but also Her Excellency, the First Lady, and colleagues that are joining from State House, and all of you, our audience that have tuned in through the different online platforms. Your Excellency, Madam Monica Chakwera, First Lady of the Republic of Malawi. Her Honor, Madam Mary Chirima, spouse to the Vice President of the Republic of Malawi. Honorable Dr. Patricia Kariati, the Minister of Gender, Community Development and Social Welfare. Honorable Halima Daudi, the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development. Honorable Aisha Adams, Deputy Speaker of Parliament. Dr. Chikosa Slungwe, the Attorney General of the Republic of Malawi. Marie Jose Torres Marshall, United Nations Resident Coordinator. His Excellency Liam McGaban, Ambassador of Ireland in South Africa. Aurel Vatat, EU Chargé d'Affaires in Malawi. Honorable Bogolo Kenewendo, former Minister of Investment, Trade and Industry in Botswana. Elizabeth Nyamayalo, former United Nations Senior Advisor on Gender Equality. Representatives of the African Union and regional economic communities, members of the diplomatic corps, heads of international, regional, and local organizations, Barbara Banda, chairperson of the NGO GCN and co-chair Conference Planning Task Force, Wilson Chivanga, co-chair Conference Planning Task Force and conference convener. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, allow me to welcome you this afternoon to this high-level panel discussion that we are convening under the theme for this year's International Women's Day, Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID-19 world. I'll repeat that. Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID world. I will proceed to introduce the eminent panelists that are joining me this afternoon to interrogate this critical issue of women's leadership during pandemics and public health emergencies. Her Excellency First Lady, ladies and gentlemen, in introducing my panel, I'll start with the distinguished lady on my far left, Madam Habiba Osman, Executive Secretary of the Malawi Human Rights Commission. Habiba holds a Master's in Human Rights Law and has a long history of working on human rights issues in Malawi. We also have Honorable Aisha Adams. She is the second Deputy Speaker of Parliament. She holds a degree in mass communications. She served in the previous cohort of Parliament 2014 to 2019, and the people of Mangochi Nkunguru gave her another mandate for 2019 to 2025. We are also joined by the renowned women's rights defender, Ms. Barbara Banda. Barbara is the current chairperson of the NGO GCN. She holds a Master's in Development Management and Business, and she's a business and marketing specialist. And then helping us with the interpretation is Betty Kalitela. Distinguished panelists, you're welcome. To kick off the discussion, I would just like to set the tone by highlighting the devastating pandemic that COVID-19 continues to prove itself to be, and how it is compounding the vulnerabilities of women. We've heard from all the speakers, including from Her Excellency, the First Lady, how women and girls have faced the consequences of COVID-19 pandemic in a number of ways. The country director for Plan International highlighted the impact on girls, including the unprecedented number of girls that have gone into early marriages, girls that have gone into forced and child marriages. We also know that issues of sexual violence have been on the increase. Every day you pick up newspaper, you open your social media platform, you're confronted with a lot of news on the impact of the pandemic, of cases of rape and defilement. We know that the perpetrators are now more confined in the homes with their would-be victims. Women have been kicked out of businesses. Women have been kicked out of jobs. Women have lost livelihoods. And we have a lot of women that are frontline workers. This calls for a rethink, a repositioning, so that women can play more active roles in leadership in the response to the pandemic. For this reason, I would like to invite our three panelists to share their perspectives on the roles of women in responding to public health emergencies, in responding to pandemics such as the COVID-19 pandemic. And to kickstart our conversation this afternoon is Madam Habiba Osman. Habiba, would you share with us your perspectives on the role of gender-inclusive leadership in responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, in preparedness, in the response, but also in the recovery phase?
Thank you very much. I think I'm having issues.
Would we have our colleagues assist us? Okay.
Hello.
Please proceed for as long as they can capture.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. And thank you very much to the organizers of the event, all protocols observed. Yes, indeed, I think this pandemic, we cannot really argue or negotiate that it has got a woman's face. And I want to agree with the UN Secretary General, who's really called a number of member states to say that when we're looking at this COVID-19 pandemic, we must look at it with a woman's face. And what does it mean? It means that women have really been hit hard and have been affected, as well as have also been the ones that have been carrying the burden of care. And for me, Grace, I think when we think of the preparedness response of COVID-19, it means really putting women and girls at the center of the recovery, putting them at the center of everything else that we're doing pertaining to COVID-19. And it doesn't only mean those women that are working in the public sector, but it also means women that are working even in the informal sector, because there's a tendency, for example, to forget and to ignore the investments that the informal sector has on the formal sector. So again, we must not even forget the marginalized ones to be at the center of the response. So for example, when we talk about the economic stimulus packages that are coming out, how are we including people that are marginalized, people with disabilities, and other vulnerable groups? So for me, I think it is really making sure that we're including all women, especially those that are also marginalized, at the center of the recovery as well as the response. And what do I also mean by that? Grace, we know that nationally, almost, I think, or globally, most countries have set up national task forces, for example. They've set up planning commissions or whatever you call them. In these platforms, how many women that are sitting on the table, preparing budgets, but also even giving in their input? So the voice and agency of women is very critical and is also very much needed. As the budgets are coming up, let's look at the budgets with a gender lens, because as we look at the gender lens, then we'll have a recovery that really is transformative, but as well as inclusive. So that is my That is my contribution. But maybe lastly as well, I would also add to make sure that we have proper data. Data is very critical, because for us to come with any programs or policies or whatever implementation plans that we need data. Data that is disaggregated, but also data that will make us come up with proper implementation plans so that no one is left behind. So that is my observation. Thank you, Grace.
Thank you so much, Habiba, for that contribution, reminding us that the pandemic continues to bear a woman's face, and that for effective responses, we've got to be on those tables, making decisions on resource allocation, but also tracking those resources and the utilization. I'll be back with you. Right now, I would like us to listen to the CSO voice in the name of Barbara Banda. Barbara, for you, I would like to share with us your thoughts on exactly what is the role of civil society in ensuring that women are actively participating. I think for a long time we've been crying for women's participation, but you know, how do we make that effective? What have we been missing? What lessons can we draw before the pandemic and during the COVID-19 pandemic? Barbara.
Thank you very much, Grace. I think this pandemic has been the teacher for all of us all. And this is something that has happened and has really affected all walks of life. So as CSOs, our mandate really is to provide some backstopping to what governments do. And we do this by ensuring that we advocate and we play a catalytic role in making sure that we have got formal institutions that ensure that we have a systematic way of dealing with issues like a pandemic as we are in at the moment. And this means that we need some systems and policies in this sort of institutions. Like if we look at the institution that Habiba is coming from, the Malawi Human Rights Center, the Malawi Human Rights Commission, we know that this is an institution where CSOs can channel issues that they would like government to respond to. And these issues are coming from the general public. So it is important that CSOs have got the necessary platforms to be able to work with government in a systematic way. But also there's need to have to build the agency of women. My colleague has just talked about this pandemic has brought in a lot of hidden ills. The rise in gender-based violence, the rise in teen pregnancies, the unemployment, the suffering of businesses. These issues need a place and a voice that can make sure that they are brought to the fore and they can be addressed. And how do CSOs play a role in ensuring that we build agency, we build voices among the women and girls who are in the majority, the receivers, they're on the receiving end of this pandemic. So it's important to have capacity building activities, to have targeted awareness raising programs. For example.
Yes, so Barbara, I'll hold you right there and then come back to you when we also hear from the audience. Just a reminder, colleagues that are following through the different social media platforms, feel free to send in your questions, your observations, your comments. I've got colleagues in the audience that will be channeling those over to me and will also let you be part of this conversation this afternoon. Interesting enough that Barbara, for you are looking at the role of CSOs in complementing government's efforts in getting structured and systematic engagements with government, pushing for accountability, building capacities of the masses. But you also spoke about pushing to ensure that policies and laws are enforced effectively, at which point we now turn to the Honorable Aisha Adams to share your thoughts on the policy perspectives, what do you think of Malawi's policy responses to the COVID-19 pandemic? Is what we have sufficient to ensure that women's participation in key decision-making structures, for example, in the COVID response, is guaranteed and put into practice? Honorable Aisha.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. To start with, let me say, as we are all aware, that we have some policies and acts in place, which some of them say the representation of women should be 40-60, and some laws says 50-50, like the Gender Equality Act. But the problem, I think, is the implementation. I'm saying this because I don't think we can come up with new policies or acts, because this COVID-19 pandemic hasn't brought up new inequalities or challenges. It has just worsened the existing inequalities and challenges which are there, and widening the gaps between men and women. So I think if we can find ways on how we can implement the already existing laws that can help us to increase the representation of women in leadership positions. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for that response. Again, we'll be building on that. I think according to the Honorable, we do have laws and policies. She cited the requirement in the Gender Equality Act, all appointments in the public sector to meet the 40-60% ratio. But what are we seeing when it comes to translating that into practice, particularly in the leadership positions that are connected to responding to the COVID-19 pandemic? Right now, I would like to check with my facilitator. I was informed that at some point, Her Excellency, the First Lady, would want to also share some thoughts that she has in the conversation that we are having. So before I put in, the opportunity for colleagues in the audience, but also on online platforms to join, Your Excellency, the First Lady, Madam Monica Chakwera, we welcome you to this high-level panel conversation. It's a great honor for us to actually have you chip in and share your thoughts. And I think I'm going to put you on the spot, Your Excellency, and have you share your perspectives on whether you think women in leadership positions are doing enough in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic in Africa. What are the challenges that you see us facing, and how can we surmount them, Your Excellency?
Thank you very much for including me in this discussion. My thoughts off my head, I would say, women are striving to do enough. And we have seen in Malawi how women have performed. Here we're giving an award to Mrs. Kalia. Mrs. Kalia has been fighting for this for a long time. From the time I knew her, that is a long time ago, she's always in front fighting for the women to be considered in high position and to be recognized. And I am not going to say a lot about Mrs. Martha, she's a woman. But I think everybody in Malawi, for example, they know. And we have other women out there in other African countries that are doing great, that are heading organizations. We have Plan, head right here as an example, and there are other organizations that are headed by women who are doing a great job. In my personal opinion, I think when our an organization is headed by a woman, you can expect great things, greater than when it's headed by men. I stand to be corrected, but that's my experience.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Your Excellency. There was a round of applause in this room. I hope I can quote exactly how you put it, but it's so reassuring and uplifting when you say when an organization is headed by a woman, you can expect great things, greater than when it is headed by a man. And some of us join you in making that statement and amplifying it. Your Excellency, you may wish to continue sharing your thoughts before I turn to the audience on online platforms and in the live audience here for some of their thoughts as well. Looking at our technical experts, we will be coming back to State House when we sort out the transmission. For a moment now, I'm going to the online participants, but also to the audience, the live audience in the room, if we have comments or questions to our panelists. As we do that, I would also like to prepare my panelists to prepare for the next question, which is what do you see as challenges that women in leadership face, and how can we surmount them? So as I wait for colleagues to channel the input, I will come to you, Honorable Adams. You are one of the outstanding leaders in politics in Malawi. You hold the position of Deputy Speaker of Parliament, which is not a mean achievement. What are your thoughts? What are the challenges that women in leadership face? And what could be the strategies for surmounting them?
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. I think the challenges that women in leadership face is empowerment, which is not fully given to other women. Because for a woman like me to go and meet fellow women in the village on issues of empowerment, I have to be empowered first so that I can go and meet them and talk to them, and they listen to me and I tell them what to do. As a member of parliament, I represent a constituency whereby I go and meet different groups of people, including young girls. When we go there, our young girls are facing a lot of challenges. This is why we have an increased number of dropouts of girls. They are having their early marriages and early pregnancies. Yet we have a legislation in place where it says a young girl shall not get married below the age of 18. But then, since the legislation is there, why are we still facing this problem? It's because the implementation is not there, the enforcement is not there. So if we can have more women in all stages of leadership, I think this can be simpler to us, because when we come up with the legislation in parliament, when it goes out there, the enforcers will be also women who will take it at heart, and even the implementers themselves, they'll make sure that girls are not married at a very tender age. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Aisha. So many challenges that women face in leadership positions: lack of empowerment, limited enforcement of the laws, but also the lack of incentives and limited education opportunities for our girls. Madam Habiba, in your opening statement, you alluded to the fact that the COVID-19 pandemic has got a woman's face. But from the awards that we have seen and also the contribution from Her Excellency, the First Lady, I think we can also comfortably say that the response of the COVID-19 pandemic in Malawi has got a woman's face. It has got women faces in the face of none other than Honorable Kumbize Chiponda, who is the co-chair of the task force, but also the recipient of the award today, Madam Martha Chizuma, who is at the forefront in fighting poor governance in the country, and which has got everything to do with the COVID-19 response. How can we push the frontiers? How can we have many more Martha Chizumas, many more Kumbize Chipondas, many more Patricia Kariatis, and the rest of the women leaders that we see? What is preventing us? Well, how can we get this to the grassroots?
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. You are right that I said that the pandemic has got a woman's face. And I think when we look at the statistics, as well as the crisis all over globally, we notice that 70%, for example, of the health workforce is women or are women. And we can do better. And I think more women are doing well. I mean, even we've seen research and studies that have shown that where women are leading, for example, where women are leading, you know, as presidents or as prime ministers, the pandemic figures have been lower in those countries. I mean, New Zealand, I think South Korea, amongst others. That tells you a lot that I think women, we've also been given a special skill of maybe multitasking. So you can be at home, you know, taking care of the family, at the same time you're on Zoom, right? So there is that burden of care. There's maybe the triple burden where you're taking care of your, you know, sick relatives, you're taking care of the children, and you're taking care of others. So that already gives us a recognition that women, we can do it, we can do it, we can sit on the table. But for me, I think what is also very critical as we push this agenda of including women, let's also look at the enablers. And some of the enablers, for example, Grace, are these issues that we're doing. So for example, today, you and I and others are talking in this room because there's technology. We can connect with the First Lady because there's technology. Technology is a barrier. And for me, as someone who's coming from a human rights perspective, there's a girl in the village right now who cannot be able to access data. So let's get data, you know, down. Let's train people in technology. Let's have technology so that it can also bridge the gap. Because when we bridge the gap, then it means Honorable Aisha Adams here, the people that are in her village or the people that are in her constituency, the girls that she's talking about, they can see her as a role model who is sitting on the panel today discussing about pandemic 19. But others also won't have this opportunity. So I think technology as a barrier is also what is affecting us as a challenge. And as a country, I think we must bridge that. Over. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Aisha, I will let you come in. I'm getting signals that you know, we've had to compress our whole panel into a space of about 20, 30 minutes because we're really racing against time. So I'm getting signals that very soon we should be winding down. But coming to you, Barbara, I would like to find out from you. I think it's simple for us to come here on the podium and sing women leadership. But can we unpack what has women leadership got to do with it?
Thank you very much, Grace. I think I want to start by what happened in the recent past when we know one of our own African women assumed the highest position at WTO. That's Dr. Ngozi Iweala. And the headlines newspaper said, grandmother to head WTO. Those are the challenges. Already we have men that are writing these stories and they paint a negative picture about women. So these are some of the barriers and challenges because we men want to gatekeep on those positions and do not allow women to also occupy those positions. So this is the time where we are saying we should, as women leaders, we should ensure that we are making enough opportunities, opening enough spaces for other women to fill in these gaps, making sure the girl children are getting education and they assume positions of high authority. So it is about getting the opportunities and really assuming the positions of power and showing men that we can also do it, even given the situations where we have to multitask, but it is amazing how women still are able to perform in an exceedingly better way than men. Thank you.
Thank you. We are really running against time. I'm not able to open the floor to our audience, but I would just like to recognize that some of our colleagues that have come into the room. I see Honorable Minister Daudi has joined us, but I also see Marie, the UN resident rep that have joined us. Honorable Aisha, I will give you the floor to share your thoughts on the previous question, but also your takeaway. What is it that you would want us, the audience, to take away from this session?
Fine, thank you very much. In fact, I just wanted to supplement on what Habiba said to do with the technology. We have seen that the COVID-19 pandemic has sent millions of workers home to work from home, and students back home, so that they should learn from there through internet. If they don't have the knowledge, know-how, there is nothing that we can do. So I think this is the time for Africa to make computer lessons compulsory in all schools. If there is a private, somebody wants to open a private, make sure they have the needed machinery so that children should get the most needed information, so that in the future we should not face the same problem. In conclusion, I just want to ask all organizations and individuals that are dealing with issues to do with women, that whenever we are having our programs, let's incorporate our male counterparts. Because if we do that, I think we will achieve more. We'll have more leaders in the leadership positions. I can give you an example of parliament. We have very few women in parliament, but we managed to get 2 speakers, which is not easy. So let us involve them. They will speak to other men. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The importance of the he for she champions, male involvement and male engagement. From the responses from Honorable Aisha, but also from Habiba, you've reminded me of one critical aspect that we see that has become compounded with the COVID-19 pandemic, which is the inequalities. So whereas those of us seated on this podium can afford online lessons for our children when schools close, those of our colleagues in the rural areas are not able to have the same opportunity. I would like to, at this moment, come back to State House. I know that the First Lady is very passionate on issues of breaking inequalities. She would like a world where we do not have inequalities, where the opportunity for a girl in the rural area and a girl in the urban area should really not depend so much on their geographical position. Excellency, First Lady, your thoughts, where are we, and what is our best shot at moving forward in having an equal world, a gender equal world, but also a socio-economic equal world? Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. Again, on top of my head. I think for me, educating the girl from the village is very, very important. Because once you are educated, you understand issues and you can participate in all these ills that we're talking about. So my dream at the moment is that all girls, as you know, statistics in our country dropout for girls, even from standard 1, is much, much higher than for boys. So something is not right there, because we are all the same before God. God has created us the same. So it's not about the brains. There's something that we should be working on, as we are doing now. Why do we have that high rate of dropout for girls? Once that is sorted out, girls are educated, they're empowered to do anything. Once you're educated, you can do anything. Even when you didn't have an opportunity at the beginning. I always take my example. I grew up in the village. You would say I didn't have an opportunity, but because of education, I was able to participate in a lot more things and achieve a lot. So for me, just off my head, education for the girl. That will lift them out from the problems they have right now.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, the First Lady of the Republic of Malawi. Indeed, education should be at the center of all the COVID-19 programming. How do we keep our girls in school? And when schools must or have to close because of the pandemic, how do we make sure that the opportunities available for the girls and boys in urban areas in private schools would also be available to the boys and girls in most of our public schools? I would like us to move to Madam Habiba Osman. Your 1 minute takeaway, your last thoughts on the topic of discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. I think one of the issues that I would also want to bring forward, which probably hasn't been highlighted a lot, is the issue about wellness and mental health. I think whilst the COVID-19 has hit us, we also know that some of us have lost some, prominent leaders, but again, others have been pushed into leadership, and that has also brought in maybe a number of burdens, whether it's in the public or private or any other institution. So again, I think as we think of a gender equal world, we must also think of issues of mental health, issues of counseling, issues of well-being, wellness. How do we bring that also in the discussion? So while we were preparing the plans, I think also the issues of mental health must also be brought out because the pandemic has really left devastating effects on everyone else.
Thank you so much, Habiba. Barbara, I'm going to give you 30 seconds because we need to really wind down now. Your final thoughts.
Okay, so basically, we need intentionality in our response to ensure that those that are left behind, we are also lifting them up. We know, for example, that this pandemic has been a double pandemic for women, so they need to be supported, especially small businesses, because they are the ones that sustain families. So women need some austerity packages to ensure that they can reset and build better.
Mm-hmm. A huge thank you to our panelists. A huge thank you to Her Excellency, the First Lady, for joining in this conversation, and for our live audience, but also all of you that were able to join from different online platforms. This will have to mark the end of this conversation on this podium, but be sure to continue the great discussions that we have been having at the different levels. I would like to join everyone that spoke before me in congratulating the two ladies that received the awards, but also to just recognize women leadership that shaped some of us sitting on this podium that are part of the live audience, Madam Esnat Kariati and Madam Linle Kantengeni, and also Dr. Mary Shower, part of the audience, part of the struggle. I also see a lot of colleagues that have joined us from the Malawi Police Service, and that the Honorable Minister of Gender has also just walked in to listen to the last part of this conversation. You have been a very wonderful audience, and our panelists, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. I'll end by reading a quote that the real heroines in the fight against COVID-19 pandemic are women. Pandemics expose gendered vulnerabilities, and this calls for gender inclusive responses. Unless and until we do that, we are not going
to achieve and mount an effective response to the pandemic. I thank you all for listening, and thanks so much, and handing over back to you, Ruthie Kulaisi. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace Malera there, and the panel discussing the Africa Gender Equality Conference with their first initiative there when we had that panel discussion, Women in Leadership Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID-19 World. So thank you. And of course, a massive thank you to Her Excellency, Madam Monica Chakwera, First Lady of the Republic of Malawi, for presiding over our opening today as we officially launch the Africa Gender Equality Conference. It will be running for 3 days. And on that note, let me thank you all for joining us. Be sure to keep coming back, follow the links, follow the page as well, just so you know what is happening. My name is Ruth Kulaisi. It's going to be an awesome 3 days. Believe me, I'll be seeing you soon.